So first of all, thanks everybody to be here today. And thanks Broadcast Pro and Vijaya for organizing this outstanding panel. I think it's one of the first times I'm seeing the leading streaming platforms on a single stage. So I think it's an outstanding panel with people from View, OSN, Shahid, Stars Play, and 1001. So, and I think it'll be quite an interesting discussion. So I'm Paritosh, a partner with Arthur E. Little in the Media Entertainment Sports practice. And just to kick things off, perhaps we start with a quick rapid fire round of introduction. If all of you could just briefly introduce yourself and the role that you play in your respective organizations. We can start from Dominic and so on.
Hi everyone, pleasure to be here. I'm Don Wilkins, so I am the head of channels at OSN. Basically responsible for all the channels that we put out via our traditional pay TV model, whether that's via DTH or via deals with telcos, businesses, commercials, MUDs, and some also deals that we have specifically with white labeling our box to specific telcos in certain territories. I'm also responsible for on-air presentation and ad sales within the channels, and also involved in the content selection for both our pay TV side and our streaming side.
My name's Dr. William Page. I'm the co-founder and Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer for 1001, which is the largest app in Iraq. My primary responsibility is obviously strategy, driving the strategic direction of the business, product experimentation, and I also oversee content acquisition and partnerships because we have a number of partnerships, bundled partnerships, for example, with OSN Plus and with Stars Play. So I primarily oversee that as a co-founder of the business. Good to be here.
My name is Jad. Can you guys?
Yeah.
So my name is Jad. I overlook the digital monetization arm at BCE Media Solutions. My primary role is to actually look after all commercial and advertising and shared Samsung TV and all social media handles of NBC. I also look after the ad product and tech development of anything related to AVOD and advertisement related specific.
Hello, I'm Joselita. I work with the Stars Play. I lead on the full original production division, branded content integrations, the whole monetization part as well, from the AVOD, from tech development to ad formats, innovative ideas that we can do in the market. Our core focus this year is big on original productions. This is going to be our core focus this year. And yeah, that's it.
Good morning. Hello. This safe side. Good morning. It's great to be here among this wonderful audience in Riyadh, and thank you for having me on this panel. My name is Samer Majzoub. I'm leading View, the streaming platform that is headquartered, just to give some context, in Hong Kong, and I'm leading I'm the GM for the Middle East and Africa. I'm scaling the platform in this part of the world as well as in Africa. I have more than 25 plus years of experience in the media and telecom industry, and that's it, to be brief. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your introductions. So perhaps we start with the overarching view of where do platforms stand as of today. And let's maybe start with Samer and William, both of you, as you have an overarching view of what's happening. So in this day and age, what are your current top 2 or 3 priorities that you have both on the consumer side, but also on the back-end side, be it data, AI operating models, etc.? So Samer?
Yes, great question. So basically, we can all see that the media scene is totally transforming, and we've seen this in the previous fire chat with the Deputy Minister, how things are evolving in this part of the world specifically, and in this country, in Saudi Arabia, to be also much more specific. So when I say things are transforming, things are being disrupted, and we as streaming platform, we are impacted but I mean, big time, right? So as an industry. So what we see is that we see the shift in I would say, in the value chain and the money, how the money is flowing, how the investment is going. We've seen how there are, we've seen newcomers to the industry that are impacting us, like the content creators. The audience is shifting, I would say, transforming in a positive way. So we have to look, to answer your question, we have to look at it in a much more positive way, which will really frame our priorities. So number one priority is to be always relevant. If you're not relevant, I mean, no one will really even not only download you, I mean, not even look at your brand name. Relevant in terms of content, relevant in terms of relevant to the audience. You need to, when I say relevant, this means that the first priority is to build a business that is that has value over the long term, and that's the first priority that we're looking at. In terms of other supporting priorities, of course, as I said, scale is not important as much as lifetime value for us to create this lifetime value system. And when I say relevant to the audience, then we need to go where the audience is going, and that's a priority that we're doing. Today, your audience is going seamlessly between social media, streaming platforms, between back and forth. We need to be part of this. And if we don't transform and we don't have this agility, then, I mean, we're out of the market. And that's the priority that we are focusing at currently.
Amazing, that's great. And how does it look from an emerging market standpoint? While Viu is present across the Middle East, you come from a very specific market, but still, like, what priorities do you have, which is relevant, especially for emerging markets like Iraq?
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of background, Iraq is a rather unique market at the moment. In the region, it's one of the lowest markets for SVOD, and that's really due to piracy, which I'll talk about later. There's a special form of piracy that exists in Iraq, and that creates a lot of issues for us. So our first priority in order to combat the issues with piracy is to provide a bundling experience. So we've partnered with OSN Plus, we've partnered with Todd, we've partnered with Stars Play to provide the users with a bundling experience either within our app or through our partnerships apps and a single sign-on so that they can get as much content as they want in one place. And that means we have more single subscription than any other platform in the market. So that's critical because at the moment these users consume all their content through illegal platforms provided to them by their ISPs. So we need to replicate that, but do it legally. Secondly, for us, personalization is absolutely critical. Because we have a number of different partners, we have a very rich data lake. So that helps us, and we're being more innovative and experimental in that approach. Finally, for us, this is the year of user experience and user engagement improvements. So we made the decision last year to take our entire tech stack, almost our entire tech stack, in-house. And what that enables us to do is more experimentation, be more agile. So with one or two exceptions, for example, Empor, who we use for data, and Braze, who we use for other experiments, we now have our own tech stack. And as a result of that, we've seen a significant improvement in user engagement, user enjoyment, satisfaction, discoverability, personalization, and all these different areas. And for us, we need to remain agile because we're never going to compete with Shahid. We're never going to compete with OSN or StarsPlay. We view them as partners. So our job is to provide an experimental and brilliant user experience for users because that's our competitive edge. By taking everything in-house, that gives us a great foundation this year to focus on achieving that priority.
That's great. So piracy, bundling, ensure great content from various platforms is there, and the enabling technology is in place as well. And I think that's a good segue. You mentioned about content, and moving on to something that fuels the streaming platforms, which is content. And we keep hearing this, that again, because of competition amongst all of you, that's also driving up the content costs, right? So on one side, content costs are rising, production houses, distributors, they're demanding more. But at the same time, because of competition, the ARPUs are declining. So Dominic, moving on to you, you have been a veteran in the content space. So what do you think of this model? Is it sustainable with this content costs rising and ARPUs declining? What do you see the future here?
I mean, again, it's a very good question, and I do think we are at kind of like kind of pivot moment, I think, for this. You're right. I mean, for years, the main providers of content, certainly from the Western markets, have had a great time of it. They've been producing and selling at very high rates, and they've been globally successful. But obviously what we're seeing over the last few years is different ways that content is now being monetized, predominantly because most of those producers have turned into providers. And there are sort of two models that basically work very well. And I think sometimes our issue here is we sort of sit between the two. So the models that work really well are those people who basically, make it and sell it. So your Disneys and your Netflixes, or commission it, you've got the reach and the broadness and the ability to monetize that across a huge number of people, and that's successful. Or you can be a standalone studio like Stoney, who basically just sell their content, and they still make very nice profit out of it, and they have good IP that everybody wants, and but they've not got into the game of trying to then become their own seller. For everyone else who's buying it, I think one of the kind of great dilemmas is that, maybe 10 years ago, I think there was a sort of sense that, SVOD particularly was an add-on. So its kind of value to the studios or to producers was very much earmarked by that. It was a smaller fraction of the overall cost of a piece of content. That's completely changed. So to use two nameless studios, one of them would basically value content where basically 3/4 of an overall price would be the SVOD and 1/4 would be linear traditional pay TV rights. Another one would be about half and half. Now the issue is, as we all know, the ARPU on a pay TV customer is maybe 2, 3, 4 times greater than a streaming customer, but you are effectively, the dynamic is the other way around. So you're paying more for content for an environment where actually you have to sell much more to make the money back. So pay TV has always been the sort of great sort of leveler in terms of it's propped up things for a while, but it's been declining, and everyone's had to deal with that, and I think that's the challenge. So I think one of those big challenges is how we move into an environment where everything can stand on its own 2 feet, that it isn't propped up by these large ARPUs, because that's also driven by the change in, people increasingly don't want to pay huge subscriptions. They want to pay less subscriptions, or they want it free with ads. So again, I think that's definitely the challenges that struck particularly here as well.
And maybe a controversial question. Do you think like streaming players are going to eat up the IPTV players in the linear TV?
Ultimately, yes. It's just a question of how long it takes. I mean, certainly for as long as I've been in the business, we've been told that pay TV is dead, and it's not dead yet. But it's definitely moving into probably like assisted care living. But it's still there. It's still fighting. But I do think everyone's prepping for the future, and everyone knows that that basically we need to be in an environment where everything can work. It's just going to be a challenge, obviously, but yeah.
And to offset these rising content costs, lots of players started thinking of doing their own originals, right? For some of them, it was easier thing, players like NBC who have their own production houses or production capacity. But for other players like Starzplay, OSN, View, right, that do not have such strong production capacity, what's your view? When does it make sense to make originals versus buying?
Again, I think you have to have a very clear idea about what you're trying to achieve. So for a lot of people, if you've got the revenue ability to produce at mass, then obviously you can create content that you can then own, and you can IP that through multiple ways of then returning that revenue, whether you're selling it or whether you'll be able to use different platforms so that you can create different kind of entry points to that platform and monetization. For some other platforms, it may be no more than you need to make noise. Forever and a day, there was always this kind of like old-fashioned way of looking at all the companies I worked at that made content would always have a kind of roughly 70-30, 80-20 rule. So 80% of the stuff they made was basically there to make money. It was there to be populist, and it was there to drive revenue, and 20% was there to make noise. It was basically there so people stood up, and were aware of what you were doing. and you knew they were either more risky, or they were less sellable, or they were just something that was going to cost more than they could return because you're making a statement piece. And that's perfectly valid. In some scenarios, that's perfectly okay to say we're going to do something that is so noisy, everyone's going to be aware of us. But that on its own obviously can only take you so far. It opens the door. The key thing then is what's behind the door once they're in. So I think then it has to be aligned with a very smart way of driving revenue for other content, whether you're acquiring it or whether you're kind of like, again, talked about earlier, but bundling, where you're creating an environment where there's more than one thing on offer.
Amazing, fully agree with that. And be it originals or be it buying, still I think there's a discussion of what genres to look into, right? As Samir, you mentioned, we must be relevant. We have to see what consumers are demanding, right? And we never know what works. Like Turkish content has become so popular. Who would have thought Korean content would become so popular? Stars Play relies on sports a lot these days. Netflix is getting in sports, right? So Samir, what's your view on, in this age of abundant content, what could be a differentiated moat that players can have to?
Yeah, so basically, as you rightly mentioned, what works and what doesn't work. I mean, of course, we need to experiment. But before experimenting, we need to know what we're experimenting for, right? So are we experimenting for revenue, for capturing what kind of audience, what audience are we looking at, right? So basically, what first we need what we need to optimize for, and this is from the learnings that we had in the market for the past years in this part of the world, and especially in Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's everywhere in the world, and it's very much also real for Saudi Arabia. We are actually competing on time, on screen time, on attention. So what we want to excel at, okay, I'm not saying that we are there, right? So there is a big difference, and that's what we're working on, and it could be one of the priorities that we mentioned earlier, is how can we really create this habit, so whoever is able to crack this formula of creating a daily habit of really accessing your platform. We are a streaming platform that is competing with the TikTok of this world, the YouTube, so of course the other guys, I'm not only talking about our streaming competitors, because we are both, all of us, actually competing as well with the other media, I would say social media, that is now slowly but surely as well ramping up and really getting more and more attention. So for this we need to, how can we do this? For us, our formula is, is working so far, right? And we are enhancing it with the, I would say, learnings that we're having over time. So we're focusing on 3 pillars. Number one, we have, since we are, as I said, we came from Southeast Asia, the East, if I may say, where we have built a very strong relationship with the Korean studios over time. So we localize the Korean. We have very strong, that's our unique selling proposition. We have very strong Korean content that we localize here for this market, and it's doing very well for us. We have of course, you cannot survive on one. You differentiate well, you capture audience, you try to be relevant, and you understand why they're consuming this, and then you enrich your proposition. So the second pillar that we have is the Turkish, that we also localize. We have also, we're very well established, and we invest a lot in Turkish content. We're talking about drama specifically, and we know who our audience is. We go after the audience that we don't want to be, we're not catering for everyone. So we know that we are addressing female audience. That's as well the demographics that we are we target. And last but not least, we have Arabic. If you're not in this, if you are operating in this part of the world, especially in Saudi Arabia, and you don't have an Arabic proposition, that you are irrelevant completely. So we do a lot. We have done a lot of originals over time, and we have done a lot of co-production. And the Arabic content is something that we as well leveraging on. So yeah, so we are trying as much as possible to achieve our target and to be different, as you said. To what our advantage is, you have to be focused, you have to know what's working, and accordingly you really adjust and optimize how you are promoting your content. I would like to say as well that, of course, in this part of the world, if you don't, I mean, collaboration is something is core to our as well strategy, in the sense that content is king for sure. Discovery as well is very important. For us to be really to have the advantage, you need to really understand how you build a very strong discovery engine. Discovery engine today is not only you push your content to the to your audience. I mean, you push your content without really seeing the value. I mean, that's something that really add to the irrelevance, if you want. So what we do as well is that we work a lot on discovery, especially we do a lot of collaboration, and this is key, especially for a market like Saudi, with content creators, where we can pull the where we pull the audience from some of the so from YouTube, from, without mentioning of course names, from the different social media channels to our platform. This is something that this is important to differentiate in this market, right? So yeah, that's mainly how we're operating, and it's already working well for us, and we're really building on this, right?
So yeah, so I understand, like testing various types of content, Turkish, Korean, right, and testing it out with the users that you have, and serving it to the right users through your own platform and also through social platforms. And that, I think, is a good segue.
Sorry, one point, because
yes,
this is very relevant to the discovery and to the testing and to microdrama. Is today everyone is talking about microdrama like a trend, right? It's no longer a trend. It's here. We have it on our platform. We've launched it. We've launched it end of year. We're experimenting. We have very good traction. So this is something, why I'm mentioning this, because I mean, this is another evolution of your, if you don't go there fast. So I believe we're one of the few, I would say, platform that really launched, microdrama in this part of the world. So this is something, yeah, so you need to be agile. You have to immediately jump on the opportunity, be part of it, evolve it, learn from it, and otherwise, I mean, I don't want to go back to the example of pay TV or, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, you will be out of the market, right? So this is something that is key to our strategy as well.
And I think that's very interesting points. And you mentioned about social media. You talked about microdramas, right? And microdramas is something which is not just on streaming platforms, but on social media as well. People are consuming it as reels, right? And I think that's where I'd like to bring Jad and Jose Rita, that what do you see the role or the function of the social media platforms? And do you think of them as partners, that they are discovery funnels? They, like, you consumers through them, you can advertise your stuff, or do you see them as competitors who are vying for the same attention and for the same ad budget? So what's your relationship with the social media platforms now and in future that you foresee? So yeah, Jad, you can start, and then Jose Rita.
So listen, this is a recurring topic and a recurring discussion. I don't see social media platforms and handles as a competition to what we do. They're definitely not allies. Let's be very clear. But they're not a direct competition. There's a huge difference in consumption and the mindset driving the consumption of long form versus short form. there's a different purpose in being on social media than being on an application like Shahid or any other long form viewing. The viewing nature is different. So I don't necessarily see it as a direct competition. I see it as a vehicle sometimes that can actually help increase viewership. Obviously, all of us here in the room will talk about social media, but at the end of the campaign, when we're launching a new piece of content, whether it's original or not, the first place we promote it is social media. So let's be realistic and let's be factual about that. We need people's attention on social media to come back to us and binge watch and have the long hours, where they spend 5 and 10 minutes a day, or maybe 2 hours in total, but in 5-minute intervals, they're going to spend 3-4 hours non-stop on our platforms, and there's a big difference there. Now, when it comes to commercials, there is, because so coming from an agency for a long time, I understand both sides, but advertisers look at it that they still look at OTTs today as if they are taking the money or competing with their social media, and this is where the competition is. So whatever they're paying in very cheap CPMs to have a high reach on social media for short form videos, they're still taking away this budget from OTTs and VODs, and they don't really understand that, again, it's a different purpose. Again, it's a different setup. But to get there and to educate, and up until we get to a place where TV is, hopefully that's going to take a very long time, because you know, when we get there after a couple of decades, then people and advertisers will start realizing more that no, the streaming space and the VOD space is totally different in behavior than social media, especially when it comes to monetization using the bottom line.
I totally agree with Jad. Again, from a social media perspective, we definitely need them in our day-to-day life. It's like you can't live without, right? So you need your social media platform because this is the highest impact on marketing for your any kind of show, launch, etc. that's happening. But at the same time, from a monetization perspective, I think it's not about them competing with us rather than the perception of those. They look at it from a number, right? So your CPM is X amount here, X amount there. Your reach is higher here, but less there. But again, it's the premium mindset that you have. So when you're on social media, you're just scrolling down, while when you're at home, sitting, actually deciding to watch a show for a longer time. So your minute of consumption on OTT is much higher than your minute of consumption on social, obviously. So this is where we have to get to a point where strategically how to position it differently by minutes of spend rather than a reach perspective versus CPM cost, because it really changes the full perception when you come to them with an approach saying, yes, you have a 50 minutes of consumption on a show, which will give you X, Y, Z in terms of revenue, reach, etc. Then they will look at it from a different perspective. But I totally agree that we will get there. Things are changing. Coming from in my background career, evolution from TV to OTT, and then OTT moving from an SVOD model to an AVOD, SVOD model. From content perspective, all of this together allows us to see that OTT, again, is going to give its own space the way it's shaped, like TV used to have its own space previously. So we will get there eventually. But yes, we can't live with and we can't live without.
That's great. That's a great analogy. And so just like social media is in a way funnel for your platforms, also I believe AVOD is a funnel for your SVOD platforms, right? And MBC, I guess, was one of the first ones in the region to have like a ad layer. Lately, Starzplay also now have a ad layer on top, and again, all of the platforms, Netflix, Amazon. So now everybody has moved on to that bandwagon. So do you think, in this day and age, is it a must to have an ad layer and to follow a hybrid model, not just rely on one model of SVOD or AVOD, but have SVOD, AVOD, pay-per-view, depending on the content, depending on the audience? Is it essential? Or to have a hybrid model and to have AVOD or not? And again, the question for both of you.
So Listen, let me start by not because Shad is the first to launch AVOD reaching. I think the essential is to have a hybrid model. Whether this hybrid model is AVOD SVOD or it's an ad-supported tier or it's a BVOD or whatever it is, each company, each streamer will have to decide what works best for them. But the notion of having something for free or supported by ads to audiences, if you want to talk to the scale and the mass majority of people, then the simple answer is yes. If you want full accessibility, the simple answer is yes. I know we're all in the broadcast business here, right? Neither the hybrid model, nor the AVOD, nor the SVOD, nothing is for free. Whether they're paying money or they're paying with their eyeballs or they're paying with their time watching ads, they're paying one way or another. And coming from the more VODs and streaming is shifted towards connected TV and the big screen, the more people are accepting advertisements there because people historically are used to TV ads since the 40s and 50s. TV ads have always been there. When you look at a big screen, you expect to see an ad. Now, this becomes more of a disruptive experience on your mobile device, probably. But the alternative is to pay, so they're making a conscious decision to not pay. And this is how anyway broadcasters are going to make their money. So is it a must? Yes. What is the form? Is the form AVOD? Is it hybrid? Is it ad supported? I can't decide on that and I can't answer to that because each company has their own policy and has their own standards there.
I do agree as well. From an AVOD perspective, it is not only mass reach, so you have an audience that could be on AVOD that's different than the audience that you have on SVOD. So if I would look at Starzplay, for example, Starzplay's core audience on premium sports is very heavy. So your audience on SVOD is heavy on male, whereas our AVOD is heavy on female, because from an entertainment perspective, it's easier to have it more on AVOD than an SVOD. So you keep your premium kind of sports, entertainment, and some obviously on series as well, for the SVOD users, whereby from an original production standpoint, you are able to classify an original production that goes for SVOD users, that works perfectly well for SVOD users with a different caliber of advertisement versus what we have on AVOD. Again, AVOD, any company, be it, as he said, AVOD, second tier, whatever we want to call it in that area, we really need to have the mass reach audience, and it's also a monetization layer for the company as well. You cannot function with only one arm, so you need all three together to be put into a proper strategy that maximizes reach. And as we mentioned, that TV is dropping, maybe in 20 years, not now, but the more it's dropping, the more people tend and expect that they have the luxury, I would say it, to watch a content for free, even if it has ads in it. So it's the perception that we have, and realistically, this is how it is.
Makes a lot of sense. And ads certainly has become a key revenue driver. And of course, as content costs are rising, platforms need to see all forms of revenues, including ads. And again, a final question on ads to both of you is that, people have always thought that ads are boring, but lately in the recent years, we see creative ads, but also these brand integrations and partnerships, right, in which you subtly place something, and sometimes it's subtle, sometimes not so subtle. Sometimes some of these brands, they themselves pay to create originals which are aligned, and I think the best example is the F1 documentary on Netflix, which really turned around the fortunes of. So any quick comments from your side on these branded integrations and partnerships, and what's the future that you see?
So from branded content partnerships, it is very important that be it on an SVOD or an AVOD, you grab the attention of a user without actually getting him to be you can't stop him with ads, right? So he's there, he's in the mindset, he's watching. So the moment he sees a very subtle ad placed, anything, a Coca-Cola, anything that's placed there, automatically the brand perception goes higher because they're perceiving it, they see it, and they directly have brand recognition, brand recall on what are we seeing. And moving forward, again, as we already mentioned this at the beginning about the cost of the production that is going extremely high. You have so many layers of how to get original productions on board, right? So you can go from a good, great show. We have a lot of creators and a lot of producers in the market that are extremely well. From entertainment perspective, or from formats perspective, where you can have branded integration that covers the cost at the same time, where you can acquire it at the same time. So branded content is key, and it's going big, and I see it evolving throughout the years as brands want to have their own key points, key features within the show without being forced.
Any? Yeah, I think this is definitely the future. This is definitely the best non-intrusive way to present ads, to be part of the story. So we always say that when you come to work from an advertising perspective, you want to come to work with content, you have to change to either be next to the content, in the content, or to actually be the content itself. So most recently we did this beautiful short series with Maria and Gold Lamb Saudi and Saudi. It was a pure series about moving around Saudi and exploring Saudi, and it wasn't commercial. And it was amazing. The results, the trend studies that run by the ad recall, it's amazing. I think this is the best way to be bold, or irrespective of the time, whether it's A1 S1, because content is going to be everywhere. Right. And that's a real dream, right? So if you want to take it on, recent hair, like you used to think with more on TV, like you're entertaining reach, you want to think of creating ways to be present. I think creating or content and branding content is the key system.
Thanks, Jad. Thanks, Ozarita. Great insights on the advertising and branded partnerships. And I think it's essential now with all of your insights, right? And just as we move towards the end of this interesting discussion, I want to do a quick question to you, William. So, William, you're in a unique position because, your platform ingests content from a lot of platforms. You mentioned Stars Play, OSN, and others, right? And you do get a lot of analytics because people have access to all of these platforms, right? So what has analytics revealed about user behavior that also surprised you?
Yeah, so because of the unique situation with piracy in Iraq you have corporate piracy. So you actually have ISPs providing illegal platforms to their users, which they can get by switching on their TV. So when we started out, we knew that we had to replicate that as much as possible within a legal context. So for us, bundling was essential, absolutely essential. So we put in place a number of different partnerships with different legal platforms in order to provide a great user experience. Now, I actually asked I had a feeling you may ask that question, so I asked my colleagues for some data, and it's pretty insightful. So over 80% of users want to have everything in one place. So that's why for us, sports is critical. We're the only platform in the market that has nearly all the sports leagues, either on our platform or on our partners' platforms. We have our own La Liga coverage. We're unique in the market for having that, sharing it with Todd. And we also have all the sports leagues provided through Todd, a number of sports leagues, sorry. We have Sierra R provided through our partner at Stars Play, UFC. So, that's really important. And the other thing that we found when we looked at our data was that the users really actually engage not just in our app, but they engage in our partners' apps. So in our app, we see about 45% of traffic coming to our app, which is to see 45% of our content on our app. Let me be clear there. So 1001 hyper-localized content, our Shakir originals, Iraqi originals on our Liga coverage. About another 25% are our partners, so Stars Play, which is viewed on our app, Rotana's content, Wide's content, and then the remaining 30 or so percent, 20% goes to Todd and 10% goes to OSN. So our analysis has showed us that our bundling strategy is working. So our priority is to utilize that data and to really double down. We've got 5 platforms that we're looking to onboard in the near future. We're doubling down on our ISP partnerships, our telco partnerships to drive the market engagement. And just to be clear here, with people who may not know the Iraqi market, because I think this is important. At the moment, it's one of the lowest markets in the region in terms of subscription, and that's because of piracy. If we are successful in our lobbying efforts and in our partnerships with actually everyone on this stage in lobbying the government, it will be the second biggest market in the region. I mean, just think about that. The second biggest behind just this market. The ARPU in Iraq is crazy. But the problem is that from a data point of view, people don't want to pay for content. Because why would they? Because they've always got it illegally through these illegal platforms. So for us, the data tells us very clearly bundling works, personalization works, discoverability that Samir rightly pointed out works, and providing a more integrated, unique experience across different apps. The data tells us that's the strategy that will make the impact. So all I can say is watch this space when it comes to Iraq, because I think it's a sleeping giant.
Great insights about the Iraq market. I was not aware Iraq could be the second largest market. And so I think it's the last final two questions as we close. And I'll try to wrap it up quickly. So Dominic, a quick one. So because you have worked a lot with BBC and Sky, you're one of the newcomers in the Middle Eastern market. So any best practice you think Middle Eastern broadcasters or streamers would adopt?
I guess I would say this is best practice. It's not necessarily specifically an issue here, but I think it's just an issue everywhere. And I think that's driven a lot by the fact that it's the nature of the world we live in. So, the pace of change at the moment is so immense that, that we are constantly in thrall to the latest innovation and tech development. And certainly many places I work, we tend to end up like being led by the innovation because something's been produced and everybody looks at that and goes, wow, we've got to make use of this piece of, innovation or content because why wouldn't you? We don't want to be behind the curve. When I was at Sky, they had an R&D department that was massive, always working on stuff. But 90% of what they worked on would never go to market because the point was that basically, and some of it was amazing. It was honestly like, going into, Q's laboratory on James Bond, and it was all this stuff which was never going to be used because, the basic question to be asked was, how does this benefit the consumer? What does it add to our service, and how can we monetize it? And if you couldn't answer those questions, then basically there was no point in pursuing it, amazing as it was. So I suppose you come back to the basic, you have to ask the question first, what it is that we want to achieve, what is it that we can offer the consumer, and how are we going to basically make some money out of it? Or if we don't make money out of it, how does it enhance the experience enough that we can at least use it for anti-churn or for, longevity in subscription or whatever. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, I suppose, which also always comes out is there's this old adage about, rubbish in, rubbish out, and it's specifically around data. So I think because everything we do is so specifically driven now by having, huge amounts of data and the best data, one of the things that often gets lost is that we don't often have clean data. So there's an awful lot of steps that are missed sometimes, and certainly everywhere I've worked, we've had an issue at some point or another where we are just using data that has not been properly validated and clean. So basically, and it's the oldest things in the book, you'll have duplicates or you'll have mismatches, and it's just not very exciting. So everyone will jump to the output and go, well, this is amazing. And then when you look back into what's going on, but actually none of this makes sense because these things are, So I would say the other thing is always just make sure your data is as clean and as valid as possible, because in everything else that you run off it, whether it's algorithms, whether it's recommendation engines, whether it's AI projects, are going to work a huge lot, much better.
So I think thanks everyone for the amazing insights on the work that you do on content, on monetization models, on ads, on specific geographies. Right. So having said that, any final closing remarks, Samir, from your side on the future of the sector?
Future is here. So about the future of the sector, I would like to just maybe a final note about the in Saudi Arabia, since this is very relevant to where we are today. I think Saudi Arabia is no longer catching up with with what's happening in the media globally. Actually, it is shaping the whole media industry. We see this. We see this from an audience point of view, how things are evolving, and if we don't evolve with the audience, and I would like to stress on this, that we have to know our audience, follow our audience, we will not be in the market anymore. So future is about understanding the audience, how they're transforming, how they're moving, to be very agile. I said this at the very beginning, and I will stress this again, to have a sustainable future. This is what we should be doing.